Hello, welcome to the FYP TV Daily Update. I'm Rob, and here are some of the talking points from the last few days. Palace drew against Metz on Saturday, a 1-1 draw in what was quite a competitive match. Christian Benteke, arguably the most wasteful of players of the lot in terms of the chances that he had. In fairness, this was the first time that he's actually had the kind of service that we know that he can make the most of. It just didn't fall to him in the right ways. He hit the bar a couple of times and had a couple of misses that were unfortunate really. It was quite a positive performance from Palace generally. I think the interesting thing is that you're going to see the way the squad takes shape come to the fore really. So the interesting thing for me was to see that we ended up with Ruben Loftus-Cheek and Jason Puncheon in the centre. The fact that we're playing Luka Milivojevic as a centre-back is probably a temporary measure. I don't think that's going to be a permanent thing. He certainly doesn't want to play as a centre-back, but it highlights as well that we do need to make a couple of more quality signings, and that's obviously one of the big talking points that comes out of this. Ultimately, Palace will arguably look at getting another goalkeeper. I imagine that of those players, of the areas that Palace need to strengthen, the striker is another priority, and then there's also the issue with needing perhaps another winger and maybe even a centre-back as well, especially if it's a case that we're trying to play Luka in a more midfield role, as he would want. I think the other thing that's really interesting from this game was seeing just the shape of the side and the way that the tactics worked. Especially in the first half, we looked like we were easily the more dominant side. Second half, it looked a little bit less so, and that can come from the fact that we were bringing on players that were either unaccustomed to that or a little bit, we had a lot of youth players on in the latter stages. That's actually a big deal, and something that really does need to be talked about. The fact that we are now playing younger players who maybe even weren't on the radar during last season. So while a lot of the focus for Palace fans was Sully Kaikai, for example, the real players that are going to be pushing for first team football, the people that are likely to be the ones to challenge for first team football from the youth squad are likely to be players like Phillips, Michael Phillips I think it is, and then also you've got Jason the Kilo, who was pretty impressive really for someone who was so young and who hadn't played first team football with that squad before. I think Frank de Boer made a point of saying that it took him a while to settle in, and it certainly did, but after about 10 minutes of playing he looked like a far more accomplished player and someone that could arguably fit in to that side in terms of being a substitute, or at the very least in terms of League Cups and things like that. So for a player like Jason the Kilo, who signed for Palace, I think it was about 2 years ago, he signed from Anderlecht, for someone like that to actually be offered the opportunity to see a path to that first team, that's a big deal. And it shows that Frank de Boer wasn't kidding about trying to give young players opportunities and to really make those opportunities available to these players. The thing about using the youth system that we have is you're not going to be able to you're not going to be able to see how good a player is in that team unless you actually give them a go. And unfortunately, you could say that under Pardew, for all the talk of trying to kind of make things good with the youth team, he didn't do that, whereas de Boer is actually doing that. In terms of any other news, it doesn't look like there's a huge amount to really write home about. Palace are going to be playing Schalke on Saturday. It'll be Frank de Boer's first game in charge at Selhurst Park, so for him that's obviously a big deal, I guess. It'll be also interesting to see how Palace fare against one of Germany's better sides. They weren't that impressive last season, to be fair to them. But they're certainly a team with a lot of experience, a lot of money, and a fair amount of quality as well. It'll be interesting to see how Palace fare against a team like that compared to Metz, for example, which for all the quality they had, they didn't look like the kind of side that would really push Palace too much. I mean, I think they arguably had they took advantage of Palace having a slightly weaker second half. Yeah, so that's basically it as far as this FYP TV update is concerned. I think there are quite a few talking points, things to discuss, but I think there's obviously a lot of concern that the next couple of weeks are going to be crucial in terms of making the kind of signings that will help boost Palace's chances next season. I think that's clear. Just because Palace aren't signing anyone doesn't mean that we're being left behind. I mean, if you look at all the other transfer activity, I think the only one that's happened in the last week at the least is Matic going to Man U. And in that case, that was something that had been talked about for probably about the whole of the summer. So we're going to see some activity, I think, in the next couple of weeks. I don't think that this is it, but who knows? We'll see what happens. The team that plays against Schalke should probably be a better representation of what to expect when we play Huddersfield. Anyway, I've been Rob. This is FYP TV. Follow us on our social media. We've got Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and tune in again soon.